everyone, Michelle Sadling here with another episode of Food Experience Unplugged. Today we'll explore how getting organized is a key to life success. Here to help us do that is Julie Coraccio, a professional life and end-of-life organizer, author, and certified life coach. This podcast is available on multiple platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and others. Please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to be informed as new episodes become available. If you enjoyed today's episode or any of our episodes, please be sure to rate and review the podcast on your favorite platform. Also, be sure to check out our website at foodexperienceunplugged.com for some resources as you begin your health journey. Julie Caraccio, welcome to Food Experience Unplugged.
Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, well, we are thrilled to have you as the decluttering expert and the organization guru, if you will. But first, to begin with, will you take a moment to introduce yourself and tell us what brought you to this point in your life and your career?
Sure. So I began my business in 2009. At the time, I was the first professional organizer to focus on eco-friendly organization in the state of North Carolina. It was something I'm really passionate about. When I started my business, it was named Healing Through Organization. And I wanted to do something where I could use my skills, make money, but also make a difference in people's lives. And as it evolved, at the same time, I was doing an international internet TV show called Reawaken Your Brilliance. And I ended up adopting that name for my business because I loved it so much. And so the aha moment for me after spending years interviewing body, mind, spirit experts was, let's tackle the clutter first. We want to declutter. You can organize clutter, but I think it's really important. Let's clear the clutter. And so I'm about clearing clutter in all areas. My definition of clutter is this. Clutter is anything that prevents you from creating the life you choose, deserve, and desire. And it's all related. If you have clutter in your physical space, I believe that you're going to have inner clutter going on, such as mental, emotional, spiritual clutter. So what is it? You have health clutter for sure. What is it that we can do? What steps can we take to clear that clutter?
Wow, I love that. I love the different aspects of clutter. When I think of clutter, I think of, cleaning out my garage, for example, but there's so many other aspects to it. I'm really grateful that you've kind of delved into that. Now, how did you get involved? What was that spark that put you in that direction?
I had a client and I'll never forget, she had an office. It was really cool. Behind her house had a whole office space, and you went up these stairs above this garage, this really wonderful space. And she looked at me and she said, "Can we just talk?" Now, prior to this, when I'm organizing with someone or decluttering, I'm always coaching. At that time, I wouldn't have used that term, but it's whether cheering you on, talking about what's really going on with this, and trying to dig deeper. It's really important, I believe, just in any aspect of life. How can we dig deeper and get at the root of something? So right off the bat, she said, "Can we just talk?" And I said, "Well, absolutely. You're the client and you're paying, so it's whatever you want." We ended up talking. You tend to work in 4-hour shifts, and we talked probably close to 3 hours. And then the amount of organizing and decluttering we did in an hour was phenomenal. And what that kind of solidified to me, let's look at the other mental and emotional things. And by having a sounding board, someone that she could say, "This is what happened. This is what I'm struggling with," and having someone hold the space to listen, hold the space to heal, I was like, wow, look at the amount of work we did after examining it and going a little deeper. So that was what really set me on the path to get certified in coaching. And I was like, wow, this is a really important component that you'd been focused all on the physical. And so that was really the spark for me.
Wow, I love that. And just, a conversation with a client puts you in a whole different direction from what you're doing. So fantastic. Wow. Now, you mentioned different aspects of clutter. What are some common types? Could you give us some examples maybe in those different areas that you laid out?
Absolutely. So first, obviously, we all know what physical clutter is. But for me, some examples of mental clutter can be worrying or borrowing trouble, as my father likes to say. Troubled thoughts, you're obsessing or you're on that hamster wheel. I believe that you can't, when I first started my business, I couldn't shut my brain off, right? It was never able to power down. I was always thinking, what do I need to do for the business? No off button. I'd say emotional, some examples are jealousy, unresolved issues in relationships, because that's going to be brought to the surface, And a big one is not honoring your emotions. And, you deal with health and nutrition. I'm an emotional eater. And one thing I was really happy, we had the craziness happen in DC last week, and I have made health a priority this year for myself. And I'm a very disciplined person, except in this area. So I put in place structure that I need to support me, but I didn't go have chocolate. I said, I'm not going to watch the news. I'm going to do some meditation, talk to people I like. So that was a huge step for me. But when you don't express your emotions, that can be clutter. And then spiritual clutter can include not following your passion, being unable to forgive, or being stuck and being a victim. And those are just, and I can go into more examples if you like, but those are just a few.
Okay, wow. And so you cover clients with all of these areas pretty much.
Yeah, because it's all related. If
Mhm.
you have an emotional component, like I mentioned, emotional eating, clearing out your clutter and organizing your kitchen is awesome and a step in the right direction. And it's not going to deal with the emotional clutter. Does that make sense?
It does. So do people that you've worked with, do they usually have more than one type of clutter going on in their life?
Usually, because everything's holistic. When you're having some challenges in one area, most of the times it's going to affect another area. Does that make sense?
It does, yes. Okay. I love that, and you're able to handle the different aspects. So you feel like there's always a correlation between the different types of clutter people are going through?
Yes, it's been in my experience. And I also believe I'm going to attract the people that resonate with that. There's some people that aren't even going to want to touch emotions or mental clutter with a 10-foot pole, and that's absolutely okay. And there are people out there that can support them.
Mm, okay. Now looking back over, earlier aspects of your life, what was your own organization or clutter or declutter life like?
I never had a lot of stuff. I just tended to be not have a lot of stuff, but I was also very super organized. It was prior to starting my own business, my background was in fund development, being a director of development, grant writing, and fundraising. You had to be super organized for all of that. And my philosophy when I worked for someone else was if I were to leave or die the next day, I wanted them to be able to find everything that they needed. And I also have kind of an uptight personality. And so people say, hey, you're uptight, come help me get organized. So I was doing decluttering and organizing before when I was living in Los Angeles, before I even thought it could be a profession. Moved out here, got a job. It was crazy town, and that's when I was like, "Oh, I can't do this anymore." So what is it that I can do to use my skills and make money? And I'll never forget I went to the SCORE office, which is retired business people. That's a free service for business owner, and they're like, "You want to do what?" People actually do that. They get paid for it. And I was like, "Yeah."
Wow, that's incredible. I love just how you've always been passionate about organization and at a personal level, and that led to you wanting to pay it forward, so to speak.
Yes.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Now, here at Food Experience Unplugged, where we talk a lot about building healthy habits and really focusing on prioritizing your health, what role does decluttering and organization, what role does that play in building healthy habits?
I wrote down a couple notes because I wanted to make sure that I didn't misrepresent anything. And I'd encourage people to Google, but they've done studies and implicated clutter in depression, anxiety, and more, including a general dampening of brain function. So if you got a lot of clutter and you're trying to be healthy, you're working against yourself. It's also a contributing factor in noncompliance with taking meds, keeping appointments, and exercising. And Princeton did a study and they said people's task performance in an organized versus a disorganized environment, your clutter is competing with your attention and it leads to decreased performance and increased stress. So the experts, not just what I'm saying, are agreeing with
Mhm.
this. But here's an example. If you can't find your keys in the morning to go to the gym, do you think you're going to spend a half an hour looking for your keys and then go to the gym, or you're going to give up?
Well, I'm guessing many people just give up.
Right. Or if, one of the things I've started to do is cook more meals. If my kitchen is full of clutter and not organized, am I going to be like, oh, I'm just going to order takeout now, or I'm just going to get a frozen meal because I've just spent 15, 20 minutes looking around for ingredients, looking for pots and pans? So
Mm.
building those habits, it's just another tool to help you be successful. And I mentioned earlier, I'm really weak in this, so I got a health watch. I'm like, oh, I'm not sitting for an hour, buzz, get up, do a stretch. I'm like, really? I only did how many steps today? And so I found, where am I weak and what can I do to do that? So it's just another tool in my toolbox. But I think that decluttering and organization is very important if you're trying to have a healthy lifestyle.
Mm, okay. Now you had mentioned also other aspects such as, with depression and anxiety or compliance with taking meds or other aspects. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what that correlation is between that and the organization aspect?
Because when you're organized, you're gonna be able to find your meds. It makes
Mm.
life easier for you. We all want the easy button like that. My favorite Staples commercial in the fall, just press the easy button. And so if we put obstacles up for ourselves, then we're most likely not gonna do it. So if you know where your meds are, then you're more likely to take them every day. I have had a really bad allergies have been bad this year. So my inhaler's right on my sink because I'm gonna have to brush my teeth in the morning. Well, dang, the inhaler's right there. So then I'm more likely to do it. So it creates an obstacle. And when people have clutter in their life or they're disorganized, they tend to be overwhelmed. So any obstacle that you can remove makes it easier for them. Does that make sense?
It does. So it's almost like you're putting in prompts for yourself
Oh,
with
that's a
regard to
good
your
way.
habits.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And again, why not make it as easy as possible? If you struggle with not wanting to eat, a bunch of junk food, then set yourself up for success by having everything in the fridge labeled or have an area for your veggies and fruits and then whatever set up so that you can easily find what you need to make homemade meals.
Okay, I love that. So we're not just talking about decluttering, we're also talking about how to strategically organize or position things for your benefit.
Correct. A little tip is think of things as real estate. So as I talk to you on my desk, like I have my planner, that is my, oh my gosh, everything in my life is stored in here. Well, I want it right here. I also use pens and pencils. I also use a thesaurus. So things that I use frequently are right around in my desk. So for example, you might want to have in your kitchen, if there are spices that you use to cook frequently, well, why not have a little container right next to the stove so that it's easy access for you? And why not create an area in your fridge for leftovers so that you're not wasting food? One of the things when I married my husband, he's like, no leftovers. I'm like, yeah, get a new wife then. Not in my house. But if you cook, one of the things I'm trying to do is I cook enough for 2 meals. So take that 5 seconds and label with Scotch tape, vegetable frittata and the day it was made and keep that section and organized in the fridge. Oh, leftovers. Let me look there first. Oh, let me look through the dates. It's going to take 10 seconds. Is there anything that I can eat now? And that's that healthy meal instead of, oh, let me order a pizza or grab a bag of snacks. That makes sense?
It does. I love that. And you're probably less inclined to find leftovers in the fridge several months later looking a little less than
Right.
appetizing.
Right. But if you know, okay, this is a section, and then consider something like a lazy Susan. You know no more about nutrition than I am, but there are lots of sauces that are healthy and different things that you can use to spice up a dish. Little lazy Susan, bam, right on the table there, and twirl it around. And what is it that you want to add to your veggies for some flavor? That's an easy in, easy out.
Mm, okay, that's wonderful. And then you're accommodating other, the many tastes or
Exactly.
preferences of you and your family members.
Yes.
Mm, I love that. I love just those little adjustments. Now, can you give us some examples of how people have really how decluttering organization has really changed their focus on life, or some examples perhaps of people you've worked with?
Sure. So, as I've mentioned, it's all related. So, I'll share a few examples. I was working with a client. This was a second marriage for both of them, but the dining room table had become the dumping ground for everything. And so they weren't connecting, they weren't having meals together. So, the first thing we did was let's declutter this, let's find a home for this, and we can work on the other stuff later, but let's do this first. So, then they began to sit down and have dinner together and to have breakfast together. And so that supported the relationship because they were able to connect and reconnect instead of being like, wow, we're going to eat in the kitchen standing up. It was a time to, how's your day going, to connect in the relationship. I also had another client. She had a stack of papers about 3 feet high. And I said, well, what are all these? And she said, well, those are clippings that I'm going to send to people. Okay. Well, how long have we had this? Oh, a couple years. So then we started to talk a little more and dig a little deeper. And, we all have the wisdom within. You know what's best for you. I know what's best for me, and my clients know what's best for them. She was able to articulate, and I just see my job as supporting people bringing out their own wisdom. She said, I'm afraid if I don't send little things like this, like recipes or articles, that people aren't going to love me anymore. As soon as she said that, she knew that that wasn't true. And the thing went into the recycling bin. But that also freed up time in her life to spend more time on what she enjoyed instead of mailing and cutting and clipping and doing all that. So it helped her bring her more joy. And then
Mm.
another example I'll use is that I had a client who every time her mother-in-law stepped in the house complained about it, how awful it looked, you're not taking care of your family. So decluttering and organizing not only got the mother-in-law to tone it down and stop it, it allowed the wife to be able to say, you know what, I need help. I need support. I'm homeschooling. I'm doing all the grocery shopping. I need help. And then her mother-in-law is like, I'll come over and watch the kids. And that allowed her free time for herself. So it not only improved her physical space, but improved her relationships. So those are just a few examples.
I love all of those. I mean, in the first one where you can't even, it sounds like they were not even able to sit at the table.
Mm-mm.
There were so many items on the table.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct. Yeah, I mean, it was became the dumping ground. Bam, you put
Mm.
it there. Everything when they'd come in, or papers, or I'm working on this file. It was just, and it builds. If you, especially another tip is keep things contained. So don't have the spices all willy nilly. Get a little container, and it doesn't have to be anything that you have to go out and buy a plastic container. For example, I like to entertain, so I have a little tiered thing where you can put hors d'oeuvres or cookies. I have another one, a little plate. I just keep my daily makeup on, because if we don't contain it, one, tends to grow, or it can spill over and make a hot mess, and you hit the spice bottle, and then it opens and goes everywhere. So make sure that you're containing things.
Mm, okay. And with that, just kind of additionally on that first example, I'm thinking if they're not sitting at the table, they're likely sitting in front of the TV or,
Standing up in
reading.
the kitchen, yeah, not and
Yeah.
that's not healthy either. And you know what? When we're sitting in front of the TV, that's when mindless eating can happen, at least for me.
Mm, absolutely. So they're helping themselves individually and they're helping each other as far as relationship building, as far as helping each other build habits, build healthy habits.
Right, and together, and that's an accountability partner. One thing my husband's really good about, okay, let's go to the gym. Okay. Having him nudge me on, but if we're and then I'm the one that drives the meal. Okay, we're eating healthy meals. This is what's coming up this week. Get your order in now. And we can have ice cream, but once a month, not more than that. And so then it works having a partner, whether it's a girlfriend, a neighbor. It doesn't have to necessarily be an intimate relationship.
Okay, good point. Now, and in that second example, I noticed that with the just the stack of papers and just having that, not only is that physical clutter, but it sounds like it also created a lot of stress within her, pressure to do tasks that weren't really even necessary.
Absolutely. You phrased that much better than I did. And that's exactly what it was doing. And remember, even if we aren't, she wasn't all the time consciously thinking about those papers, it was a drip, drip, drip at the back of her mind. Oh, I have to get that mailed out, or I haven't done that pile of paper. Oh, I just want it out of there. So it is in her mind and affecting her emotions and other areas, even if she's not in the room or consciously thinking about it at that moment. Does that make sense?
It does. And that, what a relief it is just to, get rid of those papers, but also just free her mind up from not having to do those things and being able to focus elsewhere.
Yes.
And then with the third one, I mean, that's just stress and being able to, from a relationship perspective, to ask for help
Hmm.
when you need to, and to be able to know that you don't have to take on that burden of responsibility of doing everything.
Exactly. And being able to articulate, this is what I need. And when you clear that clutter, that helps you gain clarity. And then having the mother in law respond positively also was confidence to be able to say, hey, can you come and watch the kids a couple times a week so I can go take a walk or I can go run an errand? And it just supported everything.
Okay. Now, do you find, with regard to that example, for instance, do you find that people don't realize that they can ask for help, or they feel, or there's some maybe some block in the relationship, or some obstacle that they're going through?
I find it tends to be a combination of things. Also, we live in a culture that it's about the rugged individualism and, don't ask for help and you should be able to do it on your own and all that. So I think that's a contributing factor. I think if you don't know how to get your needs met, passive aggressiveness a lot of times comes from not being able to articulate your needs. And so being able to say and having that clarity, this is what I need. And if you don't know what you need, who can you talk to that's trust and said, I'm just batting this around. Can you help me sort it out?
Okay, good. So basically, just becoming aware of what you're doing, what resources you have to assist you in that whole process.
Awareness plus action equals change. You have to have the
Mm,
awareness to make the change, and you have to move forward and take steps to do that. Without that, life doesn't change. And so many people are on autopilot and don't know and haven't been able to make that change. So first, you have to become aware. Okay, even if just saying, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do. That's an awareness. You know that something has to change. And then you can get support or take other steps to figure that out. And then once you have a game plan, like set SMART goals. That's a good example. Most of us have heard of that, and it's a really easy thing to do. And then you have to actually implement them.
and I love that. Awareness plus action equals change. That's so important. And each of those components, you can't have one without the other, so to speak.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh, wow. I love that. Oh, now, what are some steps that people can take to, if they're, just getting started with decluttering whatever aspect of their life, and to really engage in that and build healthier habits?
One of the things that I would start is to figure out where do I need to begin. And so, a couple of examples if you're not paying your mortgage on time, then your office or your bill paying system probably needs to be decluttered and or organized. So, if there's something urgent that needs to be taken care of, if you have a deadline, suppose you're getting your kitchen remodeled and getting kitchen cabinets in, and they're coming 6 weeks from now. Decluttering and organizing your kitchen should be a priority because you have this date where something's going to change, and why not get it decluttered and organized there? I would say that know where to start. So again, if something's urgent or something's driving you crazy, like if you can't sleep in bed at night because there are a pile of books on your side of the bed, then you need to get sleep. Sleep's absolutely essential, right? To do something like that. I always suggest not doing more than 3 goals at a time because then it just becomes overwhelming and you spread yourself way too thin. And then
Mm,
it's about taking a few minutes each day and working on it. If you spend 10 minutes a day, that equals over 60 hours in a year. You can tackle a lot in 60 hours. And so when people are disorganized or have a lot of clutter, they tend to get overwhelmed. That's why I'm like, start with something simple like 10 minutes. And the other thing that happens to people is they'll start in the office and then they'll zoom over to the bedroom, then they'll zoom to the kitchen, but they're not really getting anything done, right? It's these little starts. So stick with one area and don't move to the next until you've completed it.
Oh, I love that one, because in our world of instant gratification, we want to be able to do so much, and just really sticking it through and concentrating on that.
And the other thing I would say is have it match your lifestyle. If you're not a morning person, then don't say, hey, I'm going to organize and declutter at 8 a.m. because you're going to be in a cranky mood. It's not going to help you. If you are like, for instance, we are moving in a few months. So we downsized a couple years. We went through another downsizing last year. I'm not worried about decluttering. I'm like, when we get settled, I can do. I've done a lot. Is there more I can do? Probably. But I've got 1,000 things I have to do, and I'm the engine behind this. So it's not a priority right now. When I get settled, I can do some more work. But I also keep on top of everything. And I encourage you, go through everything you own every year and
Mhm.
declutter. The average, I read a statistic once that the average person has 300,000 items in their home,
Wow.
which is a lot. And I would also say review your organizational systems. Things change. Because I'm moving, I got a new planner this year. Before I had a system that worked for me, and I'm like, okay, I need everything in one area. This has a little pocket. This is what I'm going to do. So be aware as you grow and change and look at your lifestyle and that should influence your habits.
Okay, I love that. So, for example, getting ready for that move of yours, what are you going to do? You mentioned you've decluttered quite a lot up to this point, but what are some organizational steps that you plan to do to make that move a little bit smoother?
So I have everything that's related to the move in one file. I have everything and I like accordion files. I have everything related to the sale of this house in one folder. When we find a house, I'll have that folder for all of that. I also like color coding. Okay, so purple we'll know is going to the bedroom, and then have a little sheet so that it makes it easier for people moving. Can put up, okay, this is where things go. Purple dot on a piece of paper outside of the bedroom so they know all purple boxes go there. The other thing I'd say on something on a big project like this, I'm listening to my own advice. I'm doing probably about a half an hour a day packing boxes because I don't do well at last minute. And so we had to paint the living room. So we have a master task list of everything, and we're doing something each day. So when it comes time to rock and roll, I'm looking for who's going to move us. I think we might get those containers and hire some guys to pack it. But I'm in January. I'm probably not going to move. Probably we won't move till April. But I'm not waiting till the last minute, because when you wait till the last minute, especially on something deadline driven, you put a bunch of pressure on yourself. So I'm like, I don't want to do this. So I'm taking a little bit of time each day, and then just for my sanity. And I'm making sure when all else fails that I breathe. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, I just stop. I need to close my eyes and take 10 deep breaths. I think that's really important, because if you become overwhelmed, I had my very first job. I was supporting, this was the woman with the mother-in-law, and I walked into her pantry, and it was the biggest pantry I'd ever seen in my life. It must have been 6, 7 feet tall. And I'd worked on other rooms, and it's like I forgot everything I'd ever learned about organizing. It's like I just went blank. And so I stopped, I closed my eyes, and I took 10 deep breaths, and everything came back to me.
Wow, that's especially walking into a disorganized situation, to just really take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I imagine stress management takes a big role in your own, personal organization, but also helping your clients as well.
Absolutely, because then I'm also modeling good behavior. Like, hey, I got momentarily overwhelmed, so I understand where you're coming from. What can we do in this moment to reduce our stress and get back to the focus on the tasks that need to be completed?
Okay. Now you had also mentioned, doing things in small bits, taking 10 minutes and doing something. A lot of times we feel like, oh my goodness, I've got this big thing I have to do. It's going to take hours. When am I going to find the time? What can we do in 10 minutes?
You can go through your junk drawer, most likely. You can go through a bookshelf. If you have a bookcase, just take one shelf. You can probably go through your wallet. You could possibly go through a purse. It depends. I know some of these junk drawers and purses might be huge. You can go through a simple desk drawer. You can go through a dresser drawer of closet. You can go through a quarter or half of your filing cabinet. You can break it down. Anything can be broken down.
Okay. So not feeling that you have to accomplish the whole thing in one sitting then.
Exactly. Yeah, let that go, because that's one of the reasons I work in 4-hour blocks, is because depending on the situation is so people can see progress has been made. One of the things that drives me nuts about TV is it's not realistic. So people they cleaned out a hoarder's house in 48 minutes with commercials. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't see the 2 or 3 weeks of prep that went into it. You don't see the team of 6 or 7 people that did all that. And so it's set up these false expectations for people. I had someone say to me, I've been listening to you, and what I have learned is that it's okay to do it in small chunks. I don't have to get it done in one day. And that's taken off pressure.
Okay, definitely. And just kind of bringing some realism back to the
Yes.
situation.
Yes.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Now, Julie, how can people get in contact with you?
If they go to reawakenyourbrilliance.com, they can find social media, more about me if they'd like to work with me. And I also have 14 books, which they can find on the website, that are also available on Amazon and Google Play and wherever I'm accepted.
Wonderful. Oh my goodness. We will include all of those in the show notes. Now, as we wrap up, what advice do you have for people, whether they're just getting started, whether they're just kind of in the middle of different organizational challenges, so to speak?
I would say hold yourself accountable. Find support that can help you, but don't become a victim saying, "Oh, I can't do this because of X, Y, and Z," because we can always find excuses. You always have a choice. It's a choice to eat well, it's a choice to do meal planning, it's a choice to declutter, it's a choice to get organized, and it's a choice not to do that. So again, that relates, don't be a victim, be proactive and make choices, and then celebrate your progress. Any step is important. As I begin this journey, I'm drinking 64 hours of water a day. Now, probably I should be drinking more based on blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'll get there. But right now, I am drinking 64 ounces of water. Woohoo. I exercised 4 times last week. I'm targeting 3 and 5 because life's fluid and life happened. So celebrate any progress that you make.
Okay, I love that. And just understanding that it's not as much of a burden as you might think it is.
Exactly. And I look at life as a marathon rather than a sprint. We hopefully are always going to be growing, learning, being, and becoming.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. And just, being patient with yourself. It sounds like that's a big theme of yours as well.
Yes,
Mm,
absolutely.
fantastic. Well, Julie, it has been a pleasure having you on the show today and just understanding what different types of clutter to begin with, but really getting to the heart of, why and how to tackle these many, many challenges that people have.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I appreciate that you're sharing your gifts and talents with the world.